Greetings everyone, I am Ngabuto Nicholas Mabena. We hope that you are having a great time with your families during this long weekend. South Africa is backing undocumented migrants. We will know that if you are in South Africa undocumented, the penalty is for you to be deported. South Africa over the years has been arresting and deporting undocumented migrants. Initially, once you get deported, placed at Lindela Repatriation Center, you then get deported. But now, those that are arrested for being in the country undocumented, they have to appear in court. This is placing a strain on the South African system. The KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwananzi says that when you deport migrants, they come back to South Africa. He was addressing a public meeting where he was giving figures of the number of migrants they had arrested in KZN. Once the people are arrested who are undocumented, they are processed by the Department of Home Affairs for deportation. But generally, Nhlanhla Mkhwananzi says, particularly within the SADC region, those deported do find their way back. In some cases, prisons are getting full because people have to go to court, they are being processed, it takes time to deport. And they were saying at the moment there is no any other solution other than to deport. It is clear that the deportation of undocumented migrants within the SADC region is not really the solution. You would expect that a deported person will not be able to make it back to South Africa. But if you deport a person to Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, within few hours or days they are back in South Africa. And according to General Mkhwananzi, it is now a cycle. You might find that in a year, you deport one person 3 times, which points out that deportation itself might not address the problem that South Africa is faced with. Because the question of migration is not only the problem that must be dealt with by South Africa. We have said in the past that without SADC taking a stand and being truthful to each other, South Africa will continue to have this problem. Being truthful is that South Africa must take a stance against governments in the region that rig elections. Because for instance, in the case of Zimbabwe, South African government is seen by many Zimbabweans as the one that has kept ZANU-PF in power. In turn, ZANU-PF is not rebuilding the economy to take off the burden that South Africa is having on her shoulders. You'd expect that when the ANC government defends ZANU-PF, ZANU-PF in return will build the economy and drastically reduce the number of young Zimbabweans who flock to South Africa. But that is not the case. Without an industrialized SADC regime, South Africa will continue to have these challenges. Of course, South Africa cannot go to a country and they say, let us industrialize, but it should use its influence within the SADC regime. For instance, in the case of Zimbabwe, SADC is very clear in terms of its protocols on the requirements of holding a free, fair, and democratic election. And if that template is not followed, South Africa has a huge influence within the SADC regime to say we will not recognize any government that is elected in an election that does not meet the requirements as set out in the SADC protocols on holding free, fair, and democratic elections. And that's a minimum. And we know the SADC Observer Team report in the 2023 elections said that Zimbabwe did not meet those standards of holding free and fair election. In the absence of a scientific analysis, but one would agree that since the outcome of the 2023 elections, more Zimbabweans have moved to South Africa. You would have expected that those that are in South Africa will begin to move back to Zimbabwe as reconstruction is underway. But the reverse is happening, that people are continue to flock South Africa and they're putting pressure to the South African economy to an extent that General Mkhwananzi says this is a cycle. You arrest undocumented migrants as the law demands. You deport them, they are back. You arrest, you deport them, they are back. And it's not the solution. So what we are saying ourselves is that SADC must be firm when it comes to holding of elections. You cannot hide behind sovereignty and say, no, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state, but Zimbabwe is a member of SADC. The conduct of elections was discussed, adopted by SADC. And Zimbabwe is a signatory to that. And if Zimbabwe does not hold free and fair elections in accordance with the SADC protocols, SADC must take action against Zimbabwe. We have said in the past that it's not our business to choose friends for the African National Congress. It's not our business. ANC is an independent political organization. It has a right to be friends with whoever they want to be friends with. They are friends with the ZANU-PF. That's their business. But how does the ANC benefit from such political friendship with the ZANU-PF? When ZANU-PF does not assist the ANC to an extent that ANC finds itself faced with these serious problems. Because the issue of migration is a problem in South Africa, where you have so many undocumented people. And the South African government cannot afford to continue to grant permits to such individuals Unemployment is growing in South Africa. Opposition parties are critical of such moves if the ANC were to grant. Not only opposition, but the members of the ANC themselves. They are critical. So one would ask, as I'm saying that ANC is an independent organization, it can decide to be friends with whoever it wants to be friends with. But to what benefit? Because the problem in Zimbabwe, in the main, is corruption. In the main. And there's no willingness, political will, to address corruption and build a national democratic economy to an extent that to begin to industrialize the Zimbabwean economy and stop the migration of young people to South Africa. You can talk about increasing security, drones at the border, but the elephant in the room is a collapsing or collapsed economy that ZANU-PF has presided over 45 years. Unless that comes to an end, we begin to rebuild the Zimbabwean economy and the economies of other SADC regions. South Africa will continue to have this huge challenge of having undocumented people in its territory. Please like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you are on TikTok, please do follow us. Otherwise, goodbye.